Hello, everybody, and welcome to College Football Wraparound. I'm Cooper Naylor, and you can see that I have got myself here on this camera today. So we have got a lot going on here on the channel today. As I pull up the schedule for you, because you need a schedule so you know what's going on here on the channel. So, all right. So schedule getting pulled up right at the moment. So see, we're gonna here in the next few minutes, we're gonna recap the games from Thursday and Friday. We're gonna recap the Egg Bowl after that, Tulane Cincy, our shocker game, which I'll tell you what it is here in a minute. Coaching search updates. We've got a lot of big news, folks. A lot of big news. And then we've got our Heisman race, college football playoff what ifs, Thursday and Friday predictions recap, and then we got our game picks, and we will be done after that. So, um, I guess we'll dive into the games from Thursday and Friday, and let me tell you, there were some interesting games for sure. Um, let's see. So Thursday, there's only one game: Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and it was controversial because of one call, and I believe, if I am correct about this, it was a well, let me look it up because I don't want to give you false information here on this here on the channel. So I'm gonna look it up because it's very important. So let's see. But either way, there was one call that that really enraged the fans of Ole Miss, and it was a fumble call, and it allowed fans of Ole Miss to start throwing trash onto the field. So so it was one of those one side thought it was a incomplete pass, other side believed it to be a fumble, ended up refs called it a fumble. So that is what happened with that play. And people may, and honestly, it did have a big impact on how the game would go because ultimately it helped Mississippi State secure an 8-point win over Ole Miss, 24-16. So that game, that was an incredible game. Um, Last night, Florida State pulling it out 45-38 over Florida. That was an incredible game to watch. And then Tulane and Cincy came down to the last play, but Cincinnati is defeated, I believe, 27-24. So a lot of good games, um, but right now, let's take it in a more in depth think about the Egg Bowl. It was rainy, wet, and really points were hard to come by in the game. If you think about it, um, because I'm gonna get some stats pulled up for y'all, just so that we can get a better understanding of how this game went. So, um, oh, 24-22, excuse me, on that score. That's right, because Ole Miss went for a 2-point conversion, missed it, and Mississippi State secured a win against Ole Miss. So, um, let's see here. So, what we saw the other night, and this is here's a box score I've got right here. So for Ole Miss, Quinshon Judkins, the star running back for the Rebels, um, he got 22 carries, 96 yards. His average was about 4.1 yards a carry, so not a lot doing. The quarterback, Jackson Dart, went third, 38 for 250 yards, 2 touchdowns. His long was 28. Got sacked twice in the game. Let's see. Receiving wise, Dayton Wade had 10 targets. He caught eight passes for 88 yards and a touchdown. Jordan Watkins, 8 for 41. Jonathan Mingo, 7 for 40. Malik Heath, 5 for 80. So that's the Ole Miss side of things. And then you look over here at Mississippi State. Jaquavius Marks had 14 carries for 76 yards. Dylan Johnson, 12 for 73. And Jaquavius Marks had a touchdown in the game, rushing touchdown. As far as quarterbacks, Will Rogers, 27 for 39, got an interception. He threw for 239, 2 touchdowns, and he was sacked 4 times. So, and then as far as like receiving wise, Dylan Johnson, 8 receptions, 46 yards. Jaden Wally, 5 receptions, 43. Rufus Harvey, 5 for 43. Leadertrick Griffin, 2 for 39 and a touchdown. And that is some stats for you. So as you can see, not a lot of offense. It was a very heavy defensive football game. It was a fun one. It was fun. It was the Egg Bowl. It's all it was always supposed to be. So now, for both teams, what's going to happen is both teams are now going to, figure out where they go bowl-wise. So, no conference championship for either. Alabama kind of put Ole Miss's chances of a conference championship out of misery with Alabama's win at Ole Miss back after the LSU loss Alabama had. November 12th was when Alabama and Ole Miss played. So that was the Ole Miss Mississippi State game. So expect that some of the star players who are junior or senior for either Ole Miss or Mississippi State to sit out their bowl game. But really, it was just a nasty weather game for Ole Miss and Mississippi State the other night. So, of course, that hindered the game a little bit. So, yeah, that was what happened in that game. So now I want to turn my attention to Tulane and Cincinnati because this was a very fun one. I'm going to get the stats pulled up for you so that we can, of course, let's see. So passing wise, and we're looking at Tulane right here. The quarterback Pratt, 13 for 22, 162 yards and a touchdown. Man, the run game here for Tulane was on display all game long. How about this? 35 carries for Spears. Yes, 35 carries for 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is ridiculous because it just sounds a lot like how, if you watch the NFL, how the Tennessee Titans just use Derrick Henry every play they can. That's what this is like. The quarterback Pratt, he had 9 carries for 30 yards. Keys had 2 carries for 14 yards. Receiving wise, Wyatt was their top receiver as far as yardage wise. He had 3 for 62. Keys had 5 for 55. Watts had 1 for 30. Spears had 1 for 17. Bohannon had 1 for 5. James had 1 for -1, and Jackson had 1 for -6. So that is Tulane's side of things. And then Cincinnati, the quarterback Prater, he had a rough game. 10 for 26, 102 yards, 1 interception, no touchdowns. The running game, Montgomery had 17 for 95. Prater had 18 for 83. Montgomery had 2 touchdowns, by the way. I should have mentioned that. And then McClelland, Charles McClelland, he had 8 for 57 and a touchdown. Then receiving wise, Pauling had 2 for 41. Thompson had 5 for 27. Mardner had 1 for 13. Scott had 1 for 11. And Taylor had 1 for 10. So that is some stats from that game. And really, again, this was a run-heavy game, which was going to be obvious from the outset of this game that it was going to be heavy, heavy, heavy run. And really, it would be a quick game based off of clock running so much. So, yeah, that was what was going on with that game. And, of course, it was a very fun one. Now Tulane gets to go home and host the American Championship. So, of course, that'll be very interesting to see how they do. As far as who they play, it's going to depend on the result of tonight's UCF and USF game. So, if you're UCF, they're trying to win tonight and then win again in Tulane and finish off their time and in the American as a American champion. That's what Cincinnati was wanting to do the other night, but wanted to do yesterday, but Tulane had other ideas for them. So that is Tulane and Cincinnati. A recap of what the game looked like is very interesting. So now it's time to go into our shocker game. And of course, I did not let you know what it was yet, but I'm getting it pulled up for you because I was thinking, if I didn't let you know, then it'd make some sense. So, as my phone loads. All right. Nebraska and Iowa was our shocker game of the week because Nebraska won 24-17. Iowa was looking to go to the Big Ten championship, and well, they're done with that idea, of course. Casey Thompson, the quarterback for Nebraska, he was 20 for 30, 278 yards, 3 touchdowns. Rushing wise, Johnson had 12 carries for 52 yards. Palmer had 1 for 7. Grant had 14 for 6. Irvin Jr. had 2 for 12, 2 for 2. And Casey Thompson had 5 for -15. Receiving wise, Palmer had 9 for 165 and 2 touchdowns. Washington had 3 for 52 and 1 touchdown. Brown had 2 for 17. Grant had 2 for 13. Brewer 10 had 1 for 10. Irvin Jr. had 1 for 8. Martin had 1 for 7. And Borkerkin had 1 for 6 on the Nebraska side. If you're looking at the Iowa side, they had 2 quarterbacks play. And that's partly why Nebraska won was because the starting quarterback Spencer Petras, he played a couple plays and he got hurt in the game, and so he went 1 for 6 for 9 yards. And then his backup Alex Padilla went 16 for 33, 141 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Rushing wise, Johnson had 16 for 109 and a touchdown. Williams had 9 for 43. The other Williams, number 25 on the team, the Williams had 9 for 43 was number 4. You can go look at the rosters. Had 1 for 5. Bruce the 5th, I believe, had just 1 carry, no yards. Mr. Petras had 1 carry, -8 yards. Alex Padilla 5 for -25. Receiving wise, Lachey had 7 for 89. Reganey had 7 for 60. Bruce, the fifth, had 1 for 3. Williams, number 25 on the team, had 1 for 2. And then DeJong had 1 for -4. So this game was close at the end. It was 17-0, folks, at halftime. Nebraska just played some great football. Partly why this game ended up in Nebraska's hands was basically because of the quarterback. Spencer Petras got hurt. That, of course, derailed things a little bit for them. So, of course, we will see what happens. But Iowa will be playing for a bowl game. So, I don't know. They didn't look good, though. That's for sure. But that it was our shocker game of the week. So right now, what I want to do is, because I have some excess time that I have not used for my recaps yet, I want to go straight into a Q&A time, because I just have some excess time, about 6 minutes right now, that I could do some questions from you, the viewers. So if you have a question, please send it in. I'm going to take a moment and show you the rankings from the college football playoff poll right at this moment. Of course, things have changed just a little bit, but I'm going to take a moment and let you look at that, and I will be right back in just 1 second. All right, I am back, folks. Colton is asking me about let's see. Let me put that on the screen right there. Who is the best coach to never win a playoff game? That's hard. Oh, how about this? I'll have him elaborate a little bit. Are you talking about during the whole era, or if you're talking about a guy that's currently coaching? You know, just specify a little bit, because I think my answer could change a little bit, just depending. Um, so, but that is a good question though, about who's the best coach to never win a playoff game. That is a really good question. And he was saying ever, as in the whole playoff era. I got to think, because this is really kind of difficult, because there's been a lot of good coaches during the playoff era. I don't know. Hold on. So I'm going to look. Let's see. Great coaches that never won a playoff game in college football. So this is really kind of difficult. I would have to say that it's really I would say Brian Kelly is going to be up there for never winning a playoff game. Of course, he went twice with went a couple times with Notre Dame. Yeah, that's a good list right there. Lincoln Riley, Jimbo Fisher, Brian Kelly. Yeah, trying to think. I was about to say Ryan Day, but he's won a playoff game a couple times. So, Jim Harbaugh, really, if you think about it, he's a good coach that didn't win a playoff game. Of course, he went once with Michigan, which was last year. has a chance to go again if things work out good for Michigan. Even if they lose today, which is coming up here in a little bit, they could still get in. So that's a good question, though. I like that. Thank you, Colton, for that. I'll take more questions right here on the channel right now if you have them. So please send them. Please, please. If you have questions, please send them in. And I am willing to answer any question that you have got if it is something regarding football. I would really love to see your questions. Of course, it is Q&A time right here, right now. So, we'll wait a minute, see what other questions we may have here. But I really like that last question. I really like that. So, we'll see what next question is. Of course, after we get done with our Q&A time, more football. Will you ever do a NBA Finals broadcast, please? Maybe. I'll have to work some things out, but maybe. So, let's see. Got a couple more minutes, so I'll take questions before we gotta go back to talk about our planned topics here on Savor Broadcast Network's coverage of college football wraparound. So we'll wait and see. Okay. What about Super Bowl broadcast? I like that idea. I like that a lot. Super Bowl's a big game. I have an idea of how I want to do that. So I'll definitely think about doing that. So let's go ahead. Of course, the questions have been coming in very slowly. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to our I'm gonna move on. Coaching search updates right now. We got big news, folks. And it's coming out of Nebraska after their big win against Iowa at the end of the year. Finished 4-8. Not great, but a high note, of course. So, yeah. So here it is. The big update from Nebraska. They are going to hire Matt Rhule. Now, if you don't know who Matt Rhule is, it's okay. I'll explain here for you right now. The guy started at Temple. He became huge at Temple, of course, winning 2 American championships. Temple was really good with Matt Rhule. What happens then is Baylor ends up, they're looking for a new head coach. They find Matt Rhule. Matt Rhule takes this team from being a terrible Baylor team to playing for the Big 12 championship, and they looked awesome. Then he decides, my time at Baylor's done. It's time for me to go to the next stage. And he was hired by the Carolina Panthers as their head coach. And, of course, things did not go well his first 2 years. His third year, things started to kind of look better, but team struggled still. And he was fired by the Carolina Panthers. Since then, he has been sitting out these past couple months, waiting, and he is now going to become the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, he is a proven college coach who has been really good. Question is the team going to buy in? Which, I mean, honestly, I think the team's going to do real good. And I think the return to Nebraska is coming. And I'll be honest with you. Scott Frost, after looking at it, he's a good coach. But maybe it was a little quick to hire him. I mean, let's all be honest about this right here. If you're, he was at UCF. He spent, I believe, 3 years there, maybe. Just turning around that program. So you didn't really know because that was his only head coaching job to that point. You didn't know what it was going to be like with Scott Frost. But hey, of course, I mean, they didn't. I mean, it wasn't great with Scott Frost at Nebraska as head coach. But also another thing that helped bring him in was the fact that he was a star quarterback for the Huskers. So that helped it helped them realize, okay, interesting. So I mean, it was interesting to see Scott Frost get fired, but ultimately was the best decision for the Huskers. And now there's a lot of great future coming for Nebraska. And then we talk about another team, and that is Auburn. And it is a day that I mean, this is shocking, I think, to me at least, because I was like, I don't think he would take this job. He finally has. Former Ole Miss head coach disgraced after the incident with the burner, I believe it was burner phones or something. I don't remember. Either way, scandal happened. He was out as the head coach of Ole Miss, gets a job at Liberty, and turns that program into a juggernaut as far as group of 5 teams. Who, I mean, Liberty looks pretty good. They just came off of this season with a huge win over Arkansas at Arkansas, which, I mean, Arkansas finished this season 6-6. So in context of it being a win over a SEC school, it's still big for a group of 5 school like that. So, Hugh Freeze is looking to become. Well, Auburn and Hugh Freeze have discussed coaching jobs, sources say, and I'm just telling you, if he goes to Auburn, that's a I feel like it's a great hire for Auburn because this is a guy who has beat Alabama. He knows what it takes, and then he's also, I feel like he could potentially be a big time fit for this team. And so, I mean, for Auburn, I think it's a great hire. And here's the thing that I find really funny though, because if you look at what Auburn has done, they really love guys who coach at Ole Miss. They really do. Because they end up hiring Tommy Tuberville, who is the head coach at Ole Miss. He says, I will never leave, even if I'm in a pine box. He goes to Auburn. Then now you've got former Ole Miss head coach Hugh Freeze, who is going to become the head coach. And they were looking at current Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin. So this is crazy to me. We'll just see how everything works out for Auburn, but man, this is crazy, I think. This is really, really crazy. And I mean, for Auburn, it'll be great. But we'll see what happens. But yep, that is your coaching update as of right now. Of course, most likely, if Hugh Freeze does end up taking the job, it'll be announced sometime probably tomorrow because of their current game against Alabama. So, see what happens. So, it's time to turn our attention to the Heisman race because there's a couple of guys that I have pinned down as I think there's the top 2 right now. And really that is CJ Stroud and Caleb Williams. And I mean, I think I pulled up their stats the other night. So, um, you know, both guys playing incredible football. Caleb Williams, had he played the whole season last year for Oklahoma and played the same way, he probably would be in New York. CJ Stroud, of course, is no joke. I mean, no shock, I would say. But also some guys, Drake May, Stetson Bennett, Hendon Hooker. I will say Drake May and Hendon Hooker are probably off of this list because, well, okay, Hendon Hooker got hurt. I think he's done. Drake May, though, his team has lost 3 games, 2 in a row now. I don't think he'll win the Heisman. One thing that could help him potentially is if they are able to beat if they are able to beat Clemson next Saturday in the ACC championship game, that would help him a lot, but I think it's over. I think honestly it's going to be Caleb Williams or CJ Stroud, and I don't know who would win that because it's just going to depend on who. I would think it would depend on, like, because I mean, if both teams go to the playoff, I feel like it makes for a really tough conversation. But if it's only one of them, if their team makes the playoff, I feel like then it's an easier decision. And plus, if you look at the Heisman, I mean, it's a good award, but it's not the best player, I feel like. Not always. Because if we're being honest about this right here, um, I think what it needs to be is the Heisman needs to be the most valuable player to his team, not just, you know, who the media really loves, which is ultimately what it is that it's just popularity and it's not anything really impressive, I would say. So, yes, very controversial words as of the Heisman, but it's honesty from my perspective, and that is a Heisman is just a popularity vote. So, yep, that is the way I see it. Right at this moment, it's going to be Caleb Williams or CJ Stroud to me. You can't have it any other way. So, it's time to move on to our next topic right now. College football playoff what ifs. And what I'm going to do with this segment is tell you how there are some teams that people are looking at like they're done. But let me tell you, they are not done. And here's why. Okay. Let's take Alabama because they are really actually not done. And as much as people want them to be done, they're not. How do they get in? Win convincingly today. That's the first thing you got to do. Win this game against Auburn and make Auburn look humiliated, which we will be broadcasting that today here on the channel, 2 o'clock. Tune back in for that game. We'll have our 30-minute pregame. And then, of course, after that, it'll be game time, Alabama and Auburn. Yep. So, don't miss it. And then other ways they got to get in. So, here we go. TCU, they have to lose, I would say probably one game because, I mean, take your choice. 2 lost Alabama, who has really been in every game and really could be undefeated right now, or would you rather have a 1-loss TCU who got the rails beat off of them in, like, let's say the Big 12 championship game against Texas, Texas just humiliated them. Yeah, Alabama would go ahead of TCU for sure. And then what else has got to happen? Okay. LSU's got to lose the SEC championship or tonight against Texas A&M. And Notre Dame really has just got to beat USC, and the USC's got to lose the Pac-12 championship because well, as long as Notre Dame beats USC tonight or USC loses the Pac-12 championship game, that's going to open it up for Alabama. What else needs to happen? Clemson's got to lose at least another game, which I feel like is a possibility in the ACC championship game. I think it's a possibility. And then after that, I don't think there's any more one-loss or two-loss teams that are really going to stand in Alabama's way. So that is how Alabama will. That's how Alabama gets in, folks. At least from my perspective, because if you're Ohio State or Michigan, you're most likely going to win. Like either one of them are going to win the game today. That's coming up in about 23 minutes, or you're going to lose it and sit there with one loss, and it's going to be hard to leave you out. And whoever wins that should go on and beat the rails off of whoever they play in the Big Ten championship game, which is not really going to be that entertaining just because the Big Ten West is trash this year, which it's been for the last few years. So, I mean, yeah, if you're someone who's sitting there trying to figure out how is it going to look, well, let me tell you, if you're the Big Ten right now, you're feeling confident that you're going to get two teams in. The SEC could potentially get two teams in if you had Georgia and Alabama right there. That would make some very crazy stuff happening, folks. And then that brings up the question, because with Alabama being 2-loss, you would suspect it'd be 4. Because the thing is, though, that makes it difficult is that they don't want an SEC versus SEC game in the playoff semifinals. They would rather have that for the championship. They don't want a Big Ten again, especially if they already play. They try to avoid that as much as possible. So here's the controversy. Would you have Alabama at 3 and Michigan at 4 or Ohio State at 4? Like, that would be something that we would have to behold for ourselves. And then the question would be, would you move Georgia, even if they're the best team, just because you don't want to see them play against a certain team, which is Alabama, which would be a conference matchup? That's going to be a big question here coming up. But Alabama's got a chance to get in. Clemson, you got to win out. You got to win the next 2 games against South Carolina and North Carolina. I would say you need USC to lose. You need TCU to lose. And really, I think that's all you have to have. And you need LSU to lose to either Texas A&M or Georgia, because I just have this feeling that a 2-loss SEC champion would still get in over a 1-loss ACC champion Clemson. That's just the honest truth about this. USC, you need TCU to lose and just to win out. And that's how you get in. Because USC, honestly, a 1-loss USC Pac-12 champion would get in over a 2-loss SEC champion in LSU. Yes, USC would get in ahead of LSU rather than it being Clemson over LSU. That's just honest truth here. I mean, most people know that would happen. So, of course, trying to think of other teams. Let me look. Because I'm going to give you one more. Because I think the what ifs are very fun to do. And it may not happen, but who knows. We'll do Oregon right here. Yeah, this is going to be hard, but they're going to have to win their next 2 games. They need Clemson to lose. USC, of course, they'd have to beat USC for the Pac-12. They need LSU, Alabama to lose, Clemson, USC. They need TCU to lose at least once, and then that's probably how they get in. It's difficult stuff right there. So, really, ranks 1 through 9 have a chance right now. But if things go as it's looking, It would be hard to leave an undefeated TCU out of the playoff just because they're undefeated. But I could see them being done dirty if USC were to win their next 2 games. I could see USC jumping TCU just because. I mean, it's a possibility that could happen, and it would be cruel, but I mean, it would happen. Everybody knows it would happen. So that is our college football playoff what ifs. And now it's time to turn our attention to the game picks from Thursday and Friday. And here you have it right here. Colton, if you can take that banner where it says playoff what if, take that off for a second for the viewers to be able to see this. And also I show you down there in the yeah, all of it. Thank you, Colton. So here is a look at the records, and then also it shows the shows that I'm planning on doing. I will not be doing the week after the conference championship games, which would only be the Army Navy game. I'll be busy. Got a vacation I'm going on, so I will not be doing a broadcast for Army Navy. We did announce that we will be putting the Christmas special trailer out that day, so that will take its place. So as you can see, and then we'll be doing. Let's see. So December 17th for the bowl games, we will be coming to you with college football wraparound. And then December 24th, no college football wraparound, but at 7 o'clock, we have our Christmas special. And then the next week will be the playoff. And then the next week after that, national championship. And you can expect here on this channel that we will be doing at least one of those playoff games in the national championship. I'm pretty sure that we will be doing that. So, I went 6-4 Thursday and Friday, and Colton went 5-5. So it was fun week for sure for us here on the channel. And now it's time to get into the game picks. And man, I've got some interesting games today, of course. This is rivalry week for most teams, and then some teams do not have any don't have a rivalry game. Rather, it's just the final game of the season for them. Either way, first one we got is Washington and Washington State. This one is going to be something. I'm going to go Washington. I like what I've seen from Washington. They've played a good season, so I'm going to go Washington in this game. Then I've got Pitt and Miami, Florida. I think Miami, Florida finishes on a high note, and before the end of the season. So I'm gonna go Miami of Florida. And then we've got Coastal Carolina at James Madison. I honestly think James Madison will win this game. James Madison, I like what they're doing. So I'm gonna go James Madison. And then we got Kansas and Kansas State. I honestly think Kansas gets it done and allows Texas to go to the Big 12 championship game. I think it's going to happen. Kansas beats Kansas State. Wake Forest and Duke. I'm going to go Wake Forest. Wake Forest is just going to overwhelm them at the end of the day. Louisville and Kentucky. I think Kentucky ends on a high note on the season, so Kentucky beats Louisville. Oregon State. I think Oregon wins the game. I don't think there's any other choice. Oregon will be in the Pac-12 championship game against USC. And then South Carolina and Clemson. This one I think is going to come down to the last play of the game. Honestly, with you viewers, I want to be honest with you, and that's honest from me. So I think Clemson will win the game. Notre Dame and USC. This one's going to be a lot of fun, folks. And I think Notre Dame. I'm going Notre Dame with the upset. That's right. And then the big game coming up here in a few minutes, Michigan and Ohio State. I will go Ohio State here. I think they get redemption for their loss last year, and that loss to Michigan was just a 1-year thing. So, that's the game picks here for you on college football wraparound. Of course, we'll be back here at 2 o'clock to begin our coverage of Alabama and Auburn. But I'm going to end it a little early to get you to get ready to go watch Ohio State and Michigan and some other games as well, just to see how it goes. So, for now, I'm Cooper Naylor signing off, and we will see you again at 2 o'clock for Alabama and Auburn. Goodbye, everybody.